Greetings, travelers.
Oh, greetings, travelers. Oh my gosh.
This is exciting. I'm excited for this episode. So, travelers, just in case you didn't know, you can get The Dark Side of the Smoky Mountains. The link is in the show notes, wherever it is. Please get it pre-ordered if you want to. Meet us at one of our shows. We're going to have advanced copies, which is going to be super duper exciting. I don't know why I'm saying it like that. I'm just very excited about
I'm enjoying it. So,
this
yeah.
book. The book is absolutely cool to look at. It's got maps, it's got pictures, and just in case you were wondering, because if you follow Mark, you know what a great storyteller he is with his books. But this time, Erica comments. What did the person say about it? What was the analogy they did of us?
Oh, they said we were very much Sherman and Peabody because we kept talking about the Wayback Machine and all the fun stuff we do. So.
Yes, so don't worry, you get trips in the Wayback Machine in that book, and I tell you where all the good food is. So check it out. We made it so you could do the trip, and I think a couple of our friends of the podcast are going to be doing that, but we're going to wait to hear, and we'll announce it when it happens. So
Yep. If you know, you know. They're good friends of the show, and we'll announce it when we have more information. We're bad at keeping secrets, Erica. We are so bad at that.
We are terrible, but that's just because we get very excited about these things. And
yeah.
We are working on our next project, which is going to be the Dark Heart of the Appalachians. So
yeah,
we're excited for that one.
Already in the works. We have got some events up in that area that we're going to use to snag those last few photos. And that's one of the big things with our books, gang, other than not mentioning any names, but there are some Wikipedia authors, we call them, that never hit the road, never go anywhere, and they're just using Shutterstock images and stuff like that. We have some historical images that I don't think you're going to find anywhere else. We got straight from historical societies and other archives. And we also have our boots on the ground photos. So we're so proud of this book. I am thrilled, and I can't wait for y'all to have it.
And now we learned exactly all the little hiccups that we went through on first ones. So our next ones will be much faster, much better, but we're excited. And if there's places you guys think we should travel to, don't forget to send them to us, because we love hearing good ideas and things like that. And, even if, as you all know me, even if I won't go into it, well, Mark will, and, we'll just miss him if he's gone, and we'll send Bo in with him. It'll be fine.
Yeah. That's very true. And also, remember, when we get your listener stories and listener tales, some of those turn into stories in our books.
Yes.
So that's why, because we will go investigate these, or we'll send teams to investigate these, and we'll go with them. And I cannot wait for y'all to just see what we've got and see what's coming. You guys are going to be thrilled. So
Exactly. Okay. So with all of that business out of the way, we're excited. So sorry if you had to fast forward a little bit. What are we talking about today, Mark?
Okay. So I went down rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole. One of the things I put in every one of our books so far, even my old Eerie Travels books, my Eerie Florida books, Creepy Florida, Freaky Florida, Eerie Appalachia, and even my old Hellview books. I love a good witch story, right?
Oh, I love a good witch when they're vengeful. Those are my favorite, are the vengeful witches. They spark joy for me. Be vengeful.
And some of them are just crazy stories, right? They're just too much fun. And I was realizing I hadn't really done much with those here on the podcast. So it was time. The witches get their due a little bit. And even then, I'm like, if I just talk about witches in general, we're getting all the way back to Circe and so many old classic legends of them that I'm like, okay, if I do all that, we're going to be here all day, right? There's so many classic witches.
That's true. And I think the only witch we covered the one time was that one swamp witch, right? On the island in the fire. And we covered her a little bit.
The Hog Island witch.
The Hog Island witch. Yes. Thank you.
We talked about her.
My gosh.
The inspiration for Blair Witch Project. But I am going to just mention a couple of historical ones that if you want me to talk about them at some point, please reach out. Of course, probably one of the more famous ones, but also kind of forgotten, is the Witch of Endor, not the Witch of the Planet of Ewoks, but the
I was
Witch of
going to say,
Endor.
I just heard Endor in my head, and I'm like, I don't remember a witch with the Ewoks. That would have been a better movie. What?
That would have been a better movie, but this is the Christian Bible. One of the reasons that they fought so hard against practicing witchcraft was the Witch of Endor, which goes back to the Book of Samuel. We'll talk about that another time, but
Okay,
anyway.
so stop teasing us with the witches we're not talking about. Who are we
Okay.
going to begin this journey with?
All right. Well, first off, we have to go to, again, we're going to get in a Wayback Machine. We're going to go to the classic Russian folktale Baba Yaga. So not
Baba Yaga.
not John Wick and not Ghost from the Ant-Man movies, but Baba Yaga. We're going to just breeze over her. I hate to breeze over her because I could do, again, 3 deep dives on her stories, but sometimes she's either the most fearsome and scariest witch you've ever encountered, but sometimes she's the good guy. Sometimes she manages to be both. It's so fantastic.
She's like the Robin Hood of witches, you would say?
Kinda. It just depends on how you bump into her. She's supposed to have teeth of iron and a super long nose. Most famously, she lives in a hut on the edge of the forest. And the hut is almost as famous as her because it can move around on its own by having giant chicken legs.
That would be awesome. I'm not going to lie. That would be, especially depending on weather, you could be like, I'm going to go down and move the hut to the lake or the creek. And then when the water starts to rise, I'm just going to move it out of the way of the water.
Right.
I love this idea. This is brilliant.
That's great. And it's like Doctor Who, where it's bigger on the inside. So when you get into that little hut, it looks like a 1-room hut from the outside. You get in, it's like a mansion.
Oh.
And depending on the story. Now, she doesn't fly around on a broomstick.
What is her mode of transportation then?
Her mode of transportation, she flies around in a giant mortar and uses a giant pestle to steer, almost like a rowing boat. And she pushes away with that, and she just sweeps the tracks away from behind her when she's just on the ground sliding in that thing. She has a broom for that, and it's made of silver birch. So she is not affected by silver at all. She uses silver quite a bit, kind of to her advantage.
I love
now,
this.
You don't know if she's going to help you or hinder you when you seek her out. But generally, bad people get their just desserts from her, right?
Yeah.
But she also wishes to rescue the good. As that, evil brings its own consequences. So good, she tends to help. But she's just this amazing, you've got to go out in the swamp usually to find her. And depending on the story, like I said, benevolent, evil. So we're just going to leave her at that. Probably the best depiction of her in film was in the 2019 Hellboy reboot. Not a perfect movie by any stretch, but Baba Yaga in that, dead on. So,
wow.
All right. We're going to go a little forward in time.
Okay, that's good.
We're going to go to Italy. Get ready for wonderful treats there and all that.
Yes, I'm excited.
I have my pasta bib ready to go. But this is La Befana. And La Befana is a popularly told tale, usually around Epiphany, Catholic holiday. What does that got to do with pagan witch? Well, that's it. She's a witch.
Wow.
Folklore on the night before the Feast of Epiphany, which is in early January. We know that down in Newport Richey, where they throw down the cross and all the guys have to dive into the freezing cold Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America, depending on where you're at. But Befana, again, she flies around the world on her broom.
Okay.
And she delivers gifts.
Ooh, I like her. So she's like the Santa Claus of witches then.
100%. She leaves candy. She leaves fruit. She leaves small gifts in stockings for all those kids who are well behaved. Now, if the children are naughty, what do you think she leaves in their stocking?
I'm gonna say coal. And this
Exactly.
wow, when is this from?
This is from around 1600s, 1700s mostly.
So way before the whole idea of Santa Claus and Kris Kringle.
Right. Sound familiar? Exactly.
You gotta love it when history is stolen.
Now, the one good thing about Bafana's broom is it's more than just some way to fly around, right? She will tidy up a messy house and sweep your floors before she departs to her next stop.
Oh my gosh.
And guess where she comes in and out of?
The chimney?
The chimney. That's why she has to sweep up after herself, because otherwise there'd be soot everywhere. And for adults, she will wrap up her visit by indulging in a glass of your wine or any plate of food you leave out for her.
So cookies, for instance.
Yeah, but cookies and wine instead of cookies and milk.
You know me, I'm down for the cookies and wine part of things.
Right. Now, many people think that she kind of has this prehistory, pre-Christian origin, that she might have even gone back earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking Roman times.
Oh, wow.
But they have a midwinter thing. We talked about Saturnalia a long time ago. And some people say that that's where she kind of started, that she was a Roman witch. And we don't really know 100%. But there was I can't pronounce it, it's going to be terrible, but it was the practice of Strigaria. I think that's right. And that's a festival basically in a witch's honor, which we think was La Befana. Oh. And now they brought it back in modern Italy, and it is to honor her.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Pretty fun?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to get back to Baba Yaga for just a second. All right. Because we kind of blussed over her.
Yeah.
But I think she needs a little bit. So there's this one tale that I want to go into before we get to the more modern witches and even then. So one of the tales is Prince Danilia Gorvalia. In this one, a princess named Katerina befriends Baba Yaga's daughter, who she finds in Baba Yaga's hut after she flees incestuous advances by her brother.
Yeah, because that never happened in royalty.
That never happened back then, right? So they eventually get there, but they escape Baba Yaga because she's torturing them because she's trying to put Katerina in her oven.
Oh.
And as Katerina and her new companion flee, they toss behind a comb, a brush, and a hand towel in an attempt to slow Baba Yaga down. Now, the comb turns into a mountain range, the brush turns into a forest, and the towel into a vast lake. And that's inside her hut. That's how big that hut gets.
I love this. Continue. I want a massive lake inside a hut that moves around on chicken legs. I'm down with this entire thing so far.
Yeah.
I'll deal with the iron teeth even to have this happen. I'm good. And a big nose. Who cares? I'm out in the middle of the forest. I got this.
And the way this goes is, we don't know. Why is she trying to shove the girl into the burning stove? Is she a demon? Is she a witch? Is she trying to roast the souls? Who knows? Is she going to eat them? But that whole image of an old woman living in the woods, doing whatever she wants all day long, I think that sounds like a dream for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dream job. But that just shows you how these witches can be helpful. They can be hurtful. We talked about the Hog Island witch.
Yeah.
She was a healer and got burned at the stake or tied up. There's lots of different ways that story goes. Now, we're going to talk about the most famous witch. I think that even American Horror Story did a thing on her, and that is Marie Laveau. Right?
Yeah.
Now, she is not a swamp witch, despite the songs, despite a lot of legends about her. She came from a family who was New Orleans rich. Right?
Yeah.
She's got this complicated history, though. Her mother was Marguerite, who was a freed slave, and her great-grandmother had been born in West Africa. Her father, Charles Laveau, was a multiracial businessman, and he bought and sold real estate and slaves. And she married a guy named Jacques Paris, who was a carpenter of color, but he mysteriously disappeared shortly after their wedding. And then she entered a relationship with a white Louisiana guy who hailed from France, and his name was Captain Christophe Dominique Glapion. That's a name. And that sort of relationship was pretty common in Louisiana. It seems like, we took a step back for a little while, but back then that was fine. And they lived together happily. He brought property for her, and this was just a respected relationship.
Yeah.
And they lived together for 30 years and had 7 children together, though probably they were never married, because I don't think that was still legally allowed then. But she was known in New Orleans for being just this great wife and mother, well respected. And she hosted all these amazing parties with lawyers, legislators, and merchants, and just all the plantation owners and all that. And her home was between Rampart and Burgundy streets. And there she would dole out advice, offer her opinion on current events, and she would often help the sick. So that's where kind of we start getting this, where these witches are always helping the sick, and they're folk healers, and granny magic, granny legends, and all that. So, but
what's so interesting to me, I know you're going to go down this further, but I look back at even like shows like Vikings and stuff, and things, is the medicine women, because women tended to practice medicine, not that men did not, but they tended to be the sages or the healers or the whatever. I just think it's incredibly interesting how, there's a pivotal point in time this changed to calling a witch like a bad thing, like it was a horrible thing versus what they actually were, right? They just didn't practice what was considered traditional medicine, but traditional medicine didn't always exist.
Yep. I mean, you spoke of Vikings. We could go back to Grimhildir, who she was a witch and could have been good, could be bad, depending on the stories. Very much like Loki, and she was the town. She healed, but then she also hurt. So it's, again, this story is as old as time. So back to Marie. She was also a practitioner of voodoo, and she used her skills to help people. So physical healing. She would make teas, and she knew about plants. There were herbs she used. She made gree bags. Gree bags are little things you wear or carry with you that are for protection and for healing and stuff like that. So she was basically doing spiritual healing with herbs and voodoo. And Marie definitely had that knowledge. Now, I love, the New York Times wrote about her once, and it just had the best quote ever. One of the most wonderful women who ever lived. So the voodoo queen of New Orleans.
Wow. And voodoo was very prevalent in New Orleans, right?
Right. And exactly. And her status as a voodoo queen was no secret during this time, during the 19th century. She was the newspapers that they called her the head of voodoo women. Or the queen of voodoos, or the priestess of voodoos. So what did she do, really?
Yeah, I was going to say, because there's a big giant but
yeah. So they basically, the practice of voodoo, basically everybody had altars, candles, flowers, but she would invite people, both black and white, to attend her Friday meetings where they would pray, sing, dance, and chant, right? Now, this is a quote from a wonderful book called All That's Interesting. So this is about her ceremonies. These ceremonies had been passed by word of mouth in the community. Could have been passed secretly in the marketplace or meeting friends down the street. If you'd gone for help previously, she would have let you know when the next ceremony was. The ceremony would have been directed at certain things, either love, money, luck, or your ancestors. And women of all races, black and a lot of the Spanish men, the same people who are the majority of voodoo practitioners today, were there. So that's a great quote. As queen, she led even more elaborate ceremonies. Apparently, on the eve of St. John the Baptist was probably one of her famous. And on the shores of Lake Pontchartrain, they lit bonfires, dance, dove into the sacred water. And Laveau probably got gifts for this, right? She worked on donations. Sounds like the church, right? People
Yeah,
would slip
yeah.
her 20 cents, 50 cents, a little bit more. And it's pretty crazy that all this. Now, many people did see this as devil worship. And the clergy denounced voodooism as a backward religion and that it's going to impede racial progress. And after the Civil War, it pretty much got banned as much as it could. So now, a little bit today, I think voodoo kind of has an evil vibe to it, especially in Hollywood, right?
Oh, it's been given a very evil vibe because what gets shown is it's always used as a token for something bad or evil. Even in like crime shows like, CSI and stuff like that, they show when it's a ritualistic murder, they don't usually show a satanistic thing because of satanic panic. That's the whole thing. They go, this is voodoo or Santeria or something like that, where they choose something where there's not a lot of knowledge about it and make it seem like it's only a bad thing. And it wasn't. It was a spiritual way to do healing and things, but everything has a good or bad connotation to it depending on how you use it.
Right, right. And it all depends, right? So one of the things about Marie, everybody talks about the voodoo queen, voodoo queen, voodoo queen. Marie did so much more during her life. I mean, she didn't just lead these ceremonies and stuff. She did lots of famous acts in the community. She nursed yellow fever patients. She posted bail for free women of color often. And she would go to condemned prisoners to pray with them. She was compassionate. She buried people. If you're having a tough time and you lost your child and you can't deal with that, she would go bury them for you. And that's where some people are like, oh, she was doing terrible things to bodies. No, she was burying them. She was giving the families comfort.
Yeah.
And now when she died in 1881, I think it was June 15th. I remember that day just because Marie Laveau's death day. She was celebrated in newspapers. They talked about her. Now they kind of dance around whether she practiced voodoo or something in the articles, but a few people said, oh, she led midnight orgies, a couple of the papers, but come on.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, but
you're
so
into
after
that.
She died,
no harm, no foul.
Right, exactly. Hey, we don't kink shame here. But in 1881, after her death, her legend grew. Right, she transformed from a historic figure into basically a patron saint of New Orleans.
Yes,
and I think her reputation now is even better than then. And people are looking into their ancestry and their spirituality because of Marie Laveau. I think that they want that history. They want to be tied to that. And I thank American Horror Story for bringing her back and making her a badass.
She was. Yes. If you haven't watched that, go see it. And if you want to, because it's a travel tip, you can go do a tour where you can see a lot of the places that Marie Laveau and where she lived, right? You can see the house.
Go to her house. Yeah, you can go to her house. You can also go to her grave, which a lot of people leave offerings to her on it. And you will also see some voodoo markings on it, which is very frowned upon. But it is amazing to see, where you'll see some little stick lines and some other stuff. And if you know the language of voodoo, you'll understand this is somebody asking for something, an offering. And they're usually making an offering for a boon or something that they would like done. Occasionally somebody would like something bad done to somebody. But we're going to talk about somebody else here, though.
Okay.
And this is, I think, the real voodoo priestess of Louisiana.
Oh.
And I don't know if we have enough time to delve into this before the break. So
well, we could take a quick break, have a word from our sponsors, and come back.
I think we should do that because I've got 4 after the break.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll be right back after this word from our sponsors.
Destiny Beard, the lyrical soprano who will haunt your dreams. With her alluring melodies and intricate harmonies, this dark siren of wistful song shall capture your soul and lead you into the night. Check out Destiny's new single, The Haunting Is Over, with international musicians Sam Haines and Gary Bennett, as well as her other musical works at destinybeard.com.
Okay, we're back. So
Okay.
funny that we take that break and then, whatever. We're back.
Yeah, I feel so much better. I feel
Yes,
so well rested
absolutely.
after that. All right. So I think there's a little more to Marie because she gets all the credit. And I think there's somebody else that is the actual witch, the voodoo witch.
Ooh.
I think, think Marie was a voodoo priestess. I don't say anything bad about Marie. Marie was a queen. She does what she does. And like I said, she was a good person. I think she was like I said, they're trying to make her a saint. I think 100% she's the saint of New Orleans. Now let's talk about somebody else. This one kind of gets lost to history, but if you know her stories, you'll be like, ah. So Manicac Wetlands, which is about an hour, maybe a half hour north of New Orleans, 100% swamp, right? It's pea green, crawling with insects and alligators, snakes, everything. And
Yeah.
you can see the broken logs flowing. I'm like, is that an alligator? No, it was a log. But we go to this abandoned logging town called Ruddock. And it is ghost town that the swamp is reclaiming. It's just completely gone. But when you go there, you are told, beware of the curse of Julia Brown, the voodoo queen.
Okay.
Now, sometimes you'll hear it as Julie White or Julia Black. And she was a voodoo queen or voodoo priestess who lived at the edge of the swamp and worked with residents of the town of Frenier.
Okay.
And she was known for her charms and her curses. And she would sing with her guitar on the porch these unusual songs. And one of the most famous lines from one of her songs is, "One day I'm going to die and take the whole town with me."
Oh.
Now, when she was alive, this is turn of the century, turn of the 20th century, Ruddock, Frenier, a couple other towns were pretty prosperous settlements on the edge of Lake Pontchartrain, right? I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, Cajuns. I apologize. That was how I called it.
That's okay. You can complain in the comments.
So the railroad's coming through. Cabbages are running big. That was the big local crop there. And the train would come in, bring groceries, and then haul away logs, cabbages, and then go all the way up to Chicago because there's no roads, no doctors, no electricity. But these people kind of carved out an existence there. Now, September 29th, 1915, before we named them, a huge hurricane comes up from the Caribbean. Frenier, where Julia lived, the storm's surge was 13 feet. And the wind was about 125 miles an hour, they figure. And everybody went to the railroad depot and it collapsed and killed 25 people.
Oh my goodness.
So over 300 people died in Louisiana that storm, 60 in Frenier and Ruddock alone. So storm clears October 1st, and the towns are destroyed, buildings flattened, miles of railway track washed away. And one of the survivors said that he just had to shut his ears to cut out the screams of those drowning. So terrifying. So,
it is. I mean, we have early warning systems. They didn't. It looks like just a normal thunderstorm coming at you until those winds hit you. Can you imagine not knowing that stuff is coming?
Yeah. It's just terrifying. I mean, we had notice up here, and look what happened to west of Asheville and those towns. Oh my gosh, they're just now recovering. So
well, some still aren't, but
some never will.
Yeah.
But if you go out there, you'll find this rundown swamp graveyard marked 1915. So you'd think that's from the storm. It's fake. It's a prop. And it's where ghost tellers take their swamp boats out to and say, "Oh, Julia Brown haunts the swamp," and it's paranormal TV shows have come out there filming it, and some say they've seen her cackling at the edge of the woods. And I wanted to separate the truth behind it because that's what I do. And I found Julia Bernard in Louisiana from around 1845. There was no Julia Brown before that. And she married a Celestin Brown. So that's where Julia Brown would come from. And she got his farm when he died in 1914. Now, nothing mentions her as voodoo. They did find a couple references to her where she worked in New Orleans in the 1860s, and she was a local healer, according to a few people, or a traiteur, which is the Louisiana healer, midwife, all that. And her song is documented too. That this one person in one of the stories said Aunt Julia Brown always sat on her front porch, played her guitar, sang songs she would make up, and that she would die and everything would die with her. So that's where we get that. Now, her funeral was from 1915. She died in the storm. Now, some offensive language I'm going to bleep out for this. This is from her obituary. Many pranks were played by wind and tide. Inward had gathered for miles around to attend the funeral of Aunt Julia Brown. An old Inward who was well known in that section and was a big property owner. The funeral was scheduled, and Aunt Julia had been placed in her casket, and the casket in turn had been placed in the customary wooden box and sealed. At 4 o'clock, however, a storm came and was so violent that the Inward left the house in a stampede, abandoning the corpse. The corpse was found Thursday, and so was the wooden box, but the casket was never found.
Oh, wow.
So, fun little story. That's in her article about her funeral. So I don't know, but I think a lot of this voodoo stuff that goes to Marie Laveau as a swamp witch came from Julie and Julia, right?
It sounds like it, and it sounds like she could have still been a healer and a healer for that town, and it sounds like she cared a lot about people too. I mean, both of these women were very strong. It's just the perception of the storyteller versus what actually occurred. Because, if a storm comes and you just had a bunch of people die in a storm, guess what? You are going to panic and run for cover if it seems bad. Because again, they had no way of knowing what a hurricane was versus a tornado versus, they couldn't predict these things.
How many after hurricane storms have we seen? A lot.
Yeah.
So especially tornadoes and stuff, as that second band, backside comes around and all that. So I love that she floated away and they found her, but she didn't find her casket. So they just put her in the coffin and put her back down. So just fun stuff. Okay. We're going to go a little further away. We're going to leave Julia behind. And we're going to go to a place Carrie and I love.
Question, because we're travels. Can anybody go see this pretend cemetery, or
sure can.
Actually buried?
There are a couple swamp buggy tours out there that take you to the ruins of Frenier and Ruddock. So you'll see the old logging towns, the ruins of those. They're pretty cool. I can't imagine they've gotten any better with all the hurricanes that do hit that area. But they will take you to that prop cemetery. But just know it's a prop. The cemetery from 1915 is under swamp. You're never going to find it. As we said, Hollywood is different from reality. It was built for one of the TV shows, and it's there.
Yes.
So,
and you can visit where she lived, where she died, and maybe if you're lucky, if she's out there singing at night, you might just hear the sound of her singing you a little song.
And if you are out in the swamps of Louisiana and you hear banjo music, it might be time to go. So.
Oh, no, it's definitely time to go. Go, run.
All right. So we're going to go up to Mississippi. We're going to the north side of Mississippi, and this is the town of Columbus, Mississippi.
Okay.
just outside of it, there is the legend of a witch, a swamp witch. And
Okay.
Carrie and I heard this legend, and we happened to be in the area. So we were like, oh, yeah, we have to do this. The legend is hysterical. You know how we love the legend trip, right? Go try the legend, all that. So this one's pretty well known in the area. Now, there's a road there. It's called Nash Road, and it goes right through a swamp.
Okay.
It's basically a gravel road just above the swamp. I'm talking like level with the swamp. If it's in a rainy season, it's going to be tough to drive.
Okay.
But now when you go through, there's a lock and dam in Columbus, so you're not going too far from that. And that's where you're so around, I want to say I got the address here. Yeah, 4548 Nash Road. That's
okay.
There's no house there. There's nothing, but there's a little offshoot road there. And there's a little yellow fence there. Don't go past that yellow fence. The people who own that land will shoot you. But
yes,
so,
Eerie travelers, we do not want you shot.
Don't go on private property. Don't go on private property. But this witch is a ghost. She died at some point. We don't know her story.
Okay.
But she doesn't just haunt the area. She challenges you. So what you do, if you want to see this lady, you have to summon her. So she's not just going to show up. And you go to that stop on Nash Road and turn off your headlights. You're supposed to go at night. We didn't do that. We went during the day because we were sane. But turn off the little headlights and honk the horn 3 times. And after that, the witch appears. Usually she knocks on the roof of your car and then sits next to you. So like she's above you and then stands next to you. And she challenges you to a race.
Wow.
You have to race to the end of Nash Road.
Okay.
Which is about 2 miles from there. You think, okay, I can beat this lady, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get ready to go, but she cheats. She has a third leg that she puts on. So she can run super fast. And she's never lost yet. And we went out there. Nothing. Apparently, it's just a challenge to her.
Okay.
So I love that she's got this rotted leg that she kind of sews onto her body that runs.
I don't love that. That sounds smelly.
Supposedly, the magic leg came from one of her victims from when she was a witch and cursed him so that she would have his leg because he wanted to be the fastest man alive. So she made that for him. And then when he gypped her, she kept his leg. So
okay.
I don't know. There's a lot of mixed stories about her. There's a sunken church just off that path in the swamp. There's no way to get to it. Please don't march out there. You will not do well. Look for pictures of it. They're available. But you can go to Nash Road. It is definitely a travel I would highly recommend. So, too much fun.
Well, okay. Let us know, travelers, if you go do this, whether or not you beat the witch. I'm curious.
Yeah, I'd love to know. So the next one, this is on Amelia Island. And I think we've done this before, but I kind of want to just make sure she's tied into this.
Okay.
And there's a voodoo queen that hung out in Bosque Bello Cemetery. I think we mentioned that. Bosque Bello is probably Florida's oldest cemetery. It predates St. Augustine. It's goes back to 1798. So, I mean, St. Augustine goes back to the 1500s, but Bosque Bello was built on an ancient cemetery that had been there since the 1500s, early settlements and stuff. Now, this is basically 11 acres, and it's got over 5,000 graves. So the cemetery's got the 2 sections, and then there are ghosts there, woman in white, children ghosts, Whistler, ghost, is a shadow figure. And the angry spirit is supposedly that of a pirate, because Amelia Island was pirate territory. We talked about this with Luke Ori
Yeah.
and all that fun. Remember, we talked about that a while ago?
Oh,
So
yes, I
the
did.
pirate spirit had gotten, Madame Martina was this voodoo queen who was the voodoo queen of the island during the pirate era. And this pirate was supposedly one of Captain Blackbeard's lieutenants. And he fell in love with a girl at the local bordello. And the girl told him, I can take you to Madame Martina so you can be strong and defeat Blackbeard. And he went to her, and she gave him a charm that would make him impervious to swords. No sword would be able to kill him.
Interesting.
And no steel. And no steel would be able to hurt him.
I like it.
So he goes to fight Blackbeard. He has that charm protecting him. He challenges Blackbeard to a duel. Blackbeard just stabs him in the heart with his steel sword. But he's impervious. Doesn't hurt him. He lives. He's like, ha ha ha. So then Blackbeard pulls out his gun and shoots him in the face. So the charm protected him from the sword, from steel, but didn't protect him from a lead bullet.
You know, you got to be very careful in the requests. Like, I mean, I feel like that says volumes about our little pirate friend, because the fact of the matter is, if you knew Blackbeard has a gun, you might want to bring that up.
He's known for having several pistols. So
yeah.
So anyway, Blackbeard gets pissed, chases this, he just finds out that the voodoo queen protected him. So he goes into the woods and the swamps of Bosbello trying to find her. Never does. But he wanted that charm to protect him from swords. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we've got one last one that I wanted to discuss. Now, this one, I went down a serious rabbit hole. There's a famous song, by the great Jim Stafford. And this was in 1971, and it was called Swamp Witch. And this song charted. It did really well. It was from his album that I think his other song, I Don't Like Spiders and Snakes, went up a little bit higher on the charts. But Swamp Witch is just a great story song.
Yes.
And Jim Stafford's amazing. He wrote some great songs. Some that have been adapted for Renaissance festivals all over the world, that they think there's some medieval song. They're his. And that probably most famous is Under the Scotsman's Kilt. Right?
Oh, yeah.
But Swamp Witch was one I'd heard quite a bit growing up. And I loved it. And the song is about a witch who lives at the edge of an Okeechobee town. So this is Lake Okeechobee, South Florida. Mm-hmm. Largest inland lake in the United States. It's almost like going to the Gulf of Mexico when you go there. It's crazy. You can't see the other side, but
wow,
you go out there and it's supposedly this Okeechobee town. She was outside, Swamp Witch, healer, but they would all be afraid of her. And her name was Blackwater Hattie.
Ooh.
And now we talked about the Blackwater clan before. They are a real thing. They are in the middle of Florida swamps. They're an inbred snake worshiping. They weren't really snake worshiping. They were Bibles, but they were the ones that held the snakes up. And if you hold rattlesnakes up, and if you don't get bit, you're holy. So, but they had a whole thing in the 1950s. One of them came to town, got drunk, and they arrested him. But because they arrested him, they were just going to keep him overnight in the drunk tank. Word got back to his clan, and then the clan all came in. And there are all these stories of 40 or 50 misshapen men and women came out of the swamp, and the police got so scared they let him go.
Well, I mean, probably good on them.
So that's the Blackwater term. And I was actually thinking, okay, so this must be a member of her clan, of that clan. And she was a member of that. And she's helping these people out in this Okeechobee town. And the story goes that the town gets poisoned. They're all dying. Some fever got them. The swamp swamp fever got him, which I'm assuming is yellow fever. And the
Yeah.
doc was the first one to die. So there's no one to take care of anybody. So they blame Hattie and they form a posse to go get her.
Yeah.
They never find her and they come back to town. And then the next day, there's this big vat of goo in the center of town. And they all just start drinking it because you're starving, you're dying, you don't ask. And then they all feel better. The fever went away. The sky's clear. Everybody's fine. It's a miracle. And then they go, oh, Hattie's great. Swamp Witch magic is good. Let's go get her. And so they go out to find her, and all they see, they never find her. They never see her, but they see this note stuck to a tree with a knife that says, don't come looking again. So
yeah, I don't love that.
So Jim Stafford's song describes all that. So I wanted to know which town this was. So I start driving around Lake Okeechobee to find out which town claims Blackwater Hattie as their own. And none of them would say this is exactly where it was. Or it was the opposite. I found like 3 others that were like, oh yeah, she's here. She's here. This is where she came from. And I'm like, we got all these towns claiming that she's her. And then we got a bunch of towns. No, she wasn't here. So I didn't know where to get it. I had to dig and dig and dig. And then finally I'm like, you know what? I'm going to reach out to Jim Stafford. He has a theater at that time in Branson, and he still performed every night. This guy's an amazing performer. His music's incredible. And he called me back, which I did not expect.
Wow.
And he had read Eerie, Florida, which made me happy. And he's like, yeah, I'm from Florida. I grew up on an Okeechobee town, but I made her up. There is no Blackwater Hattie.
Oh my gosh.
There was a little lady named Hattie who lived behind my school, and we would stop at her house occasionally, and she would give us Coke and sometimes some cookies she had baked. So I guess there was Hattie's shack, and it was back there, but he just wrote on a note on a piece of paper, write a song about people not looking a gift horse in the mouth and make it about a witch. That's why, gang, these legends, these stories, sometimes they're just stories. Sometimes they are just legends. They're not all real. I may go down a rabbit hole on legendary songs that aren't based on real things, and then some legendary songs that are based on real things. So let us know if you'd want me to do that.
Absolutely, because I think that's really, really funny. I want to know about Black Betty. So I'm not going to ask now. We're going to talk about that later, because that's one of the ones I've always wanted to know. But travelers, so there are lots of places you can go and visit. We'll make sure to include the links in the show notes so that you can. Make sure when you go, take pictures, post pictures, tag us. We want to know about your travels and any places. Who are your witches you want to hear about, or witches from your area maybe we haven't heard of and we want to. So don't forget to share. Don't forget to share any listener stories or questions that you have. You can throw them to us at eerietravels.com. Just go to the page and just send it to us. We get it in our emails and we love them. And thank you to all of our patrons out there. We're going to be doing a bunch more with Patreon. So if you're not a patron, make sure to poke in there, because I'm going to catch up. I'm a little behind, but I'm going to catch up, and we're going to be doing some patron only lives and stuff like that here shortly. So thank you again for everybody who supports us, comes out to visit us. And with that, Mark, what sage advice do you have for us out there?
Well, when you're traveling the swamps and you're out there, remember, some of them are there to help you. If that kindly old lady comes up and offers to help you get out of the swamp, or offers to help what ails you, be kind, be generous, take her up on her offer. If she pulls out that third leg or gets in that mortar and pestle, might be time to run, and we will see you on the other side.